Okay, this is on page 44. Now, two groups of students were assigned to write a poem about laughter, and then they got a grade based on the creativity. Now, there were external motivations for one group, and there were internal motivations for the other group. External is something like getting recognition, and internal is something like writing makes you feel good. Okay, now, based on their scores, it looks like the motivations are fairly equal. The range is almost the same. 5 to 25 is about 20. Same thing here. Looks like it's almost 20 in the other one. And now look at the middle, but it just looks like if you look at this center group here is a little higher than this center group here. So just a tad bit higher. So your center is a little higher in the internal motivation group. So that's something you might write for that question. Now on this one, this is a stem and leaf plot, and the way it works is you always have to have a key as to what each stem and leaf mean. So here's like the stems and here are the leaves, meaning in this case residents from 25 to 34 years old in each of the 50 states. So 11.4 and 11.4. So there's two states that have 11.4%. And then 11.6, 11.6, 11.6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 states that have 11.6, 11.7, 11.8. Okay? So it's just a way to organize our data. That's what we're doing here. Now, why do we split these stems here? Right? 11, 11, 12, 12. Well, there's a lot of numbers here. So if we didn't split them, if we just did 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, it wouldn't give us a really accurate representation of what the shape of the graph is. It would look, it would be very narrow. So that's why we split them, to get a better view of what the shape of the graph is. Now, over here, 16%, that's Utah. What would be a reason for that? Well, maybe it's because Mormons, there's a lot of Mormon families that live in Utah, and Mormons do tend to have bigger families, lots of young people, and 16% between 25 and 34. That might be the reason. Now, they also say, can you do the shape, center, spread? So one thing that's handy is if you were comfortable with SOX, remember, shape, outlier, center, and spread, for the dot plot, just turn this sideways. So think of it as a dot plot. So here we go. And we just kind of look at it now like this. Here's the spread, right? 11.4 to 16%. Looks like the center is right around 13%. It's somewhat symmetric. Okay. Unimodal, that's a new word. That means there's just one mode. Remember, mode is the one that shows up the most. Sometimes there's more than one mode. There'll be bimodal, trimodal, I guess. But this is unimodal. Let's see. Are there any outliers? Well, 16 is pretty high, but it's really not that far away from 15.11. So, no outliers. Bam. That is number 45. So, number 47, El Nino years for the monsoon in India. So we took some years and took a look at the data. So this is the amount of rain in millimeters for those El Nino years. And they say, make a stem plot. Okay, and they want you to make two stem plots. One was splitting the stems and one was not. Also, round these, like this 858 would be 860. Okay, so round to the nearest 10. Otherwise, you're going to have one dot, almost one dot in every single number. So, let's take a look at what that looks like. So here's what it looks like. And notice, without splitting the stems and with splitting the stems, it just looks nicer when you split the stems. If you have a lot of numbers in one of the categories, you might want to consider splitting the stems. So, And how do we split the stems? So 0 to 4, and then 5 to 10, right in the middle. So this represents 600, and this is 630, this one, so there's two of those. That's how this works. They also want you to take a look at the socks, right? Shape, outlier, center, and spread. Well, the shape is fairly symmetric. It's a little bit skewed to the right. So the longer tail is over here on the right side, a little skewed to the right. The center looks to be in the 700 somewhere, probably like 760, in that range. And speaking of the range, so we're from 600 to 960 millimeters, and there doesn't seem to be any obvious outliers. Okay, so what else we got to do? So in the question it says, the average monsoon rainfall for all years from 1871 to 2004 is about 850 millimeters. What effect does El Nino appear to have on the monsoon rain? Well, 850 is right in this range. So it looks like the El Nino is having an adverse effect on the rainfall if they want more rain, right? So it has lower than average rainfall during an El Nino year. And done.